GM, everybody. Welcome to Flywheel, your number one source for everything Frax, DeFi, and all that is in between. If you want to know what's going on in the world on chain, you've come to the right place. This is DeFi Dave, here with capital K, and we are here to help you harness the power of the Flywheel. And talking about the Flywheel's best investigative on-chain, off-chain, Telegram, Twitter space. I call him a truffle sniffer. Like you have the pigs that just sniff the truffles and like, oh, found it. It's Crypto Vestor. This is the Crypto Vestor episode. Crypto Vestor, a little bit of his background. He was in hedge funds for like a few decades.
20 years plus.
20 years plus. He was a Bitcoin maxi back in 2014. Then over time, staunch, sounded like he would have been laser-eyed. Then became an ETH maxi, and now is a self-professed stablecoin maxi and fractionalist. And we had him on, and Crypto Vestor, honestly, it's funny, like when we first met, he was like a lurker, but then he really just like jumped to the forefront of like, if anybody like in the Frax chat just sees him just asking Sam questions all the time, and like he's like the human Sam Kazbot, because he's just always sniffing alpha. Like you just need to follow him. And I'm just like, I remember when he was coming up, I'm like, guys, this is your guy. This is the guy. And he just does it from a natural curiosity. I just love that. And so it was like, we got to get him on. We got to like hear, it's one thing to see it like over text, but we got to like hear the alpha itself. So I'm really happy we got him on. We went deep into this episode, not just about Frax, not just about Curve and Convex, but what he thinks is in store for the next 12 to 24 months. Kit, what are your thoughts on this one?
It's always good to speak to, like-minded, kindred spirits. So that's all I got to say. Kick your feet up and just relax on this one.
Yeah,
you don't really need to take
this
notes.
is a hopium straight to the veins. Honestly,
Yeah.
this is a hopium episode. Like if
really
you're
is.
down in the dumps because of the bear, if you feel like you have no hope, if you feel like it's so over, by the end of this episode, you're gonna be saying, "We're back."
Yeah, soon.
Yeah.
TM.
No, we're back. We're back. And if you want to, and then if you want to keep up with everything every week, you know what to do. Go to that bell button, subscribe right now, leave us a comment, let us know what you think. Go to flywheeldefi.com, subscribe to your newsletter. Make sure you follow all of our socials at flywheeldefi on Twitter, TikTok, and Telegram. For exclusive show notes, go to our friend tech at flywheeldefi. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at DeFiDave22.
You follow me at 0xcapital_K.
And let's get the flywheel spinning.
ਦਿਲ ਪਰਦੇਸੀ ਨੂੰ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਨਿਤਜ਼ਾਰ ਹੋਣਾ ਪੈ ਜਾਊਗਾ ਨਾਲ ਰੰਜੇਟੇ ਜੋਗੀ ਦੇ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਜੋਗਣ ਹੋਣਾ ਪੈ ਜਾਊਗਾ
ਜੇ ਇਸ਼ਕ ਦੇ ਅਲਿਆਂ ਜ਼ਖਮਾਂ ਦੇ ਖੁਦ ਹੱਸ ਕੇ ਮੂੰਹ ਸੀ ਲਾਂਗੀ ਜੇ ਯਾਰ ਮੇਰਾ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਜ਼ਹਿਰ ਦੇ ਮੈਂ ਘਟ ਘਟ ਕਰਕੇ ਪੀ ਲਾਂਗੀ
Do you hold ETH but don't know what to do with it? Want to earn those juicy liquid staking derivative yields but don't know where to start? Well, frxETH is there for you. frxETH is Frax's native LSD solution, allowing you to earn boosted yields in multiple ways on your ETH. If you want to get started, go to app.frax.finance and turn your ETH into frxETH today. All right, everyone, let's get this flywheel rolling here. Welcome back. I'm your host, DeFi Dave, here with capital K, and today we have on the legend himself, like literally snuffing the truffle, trying those tidbits of alpha. He's in the pit. And literally my timeline is just filled with this llama. Whether it's the timeline or the Telegram chat, just questions and answers, and then posted like, you're like a human or llama Sam Kaz bot. We have on Crypto Vestor. For those who are unfamiliar, he is a very active Frax, Convex, Curve community member who is known for just sniffing out alpha. And we're the Frax podcast first and foremost, so we had to get him on. So Crypto Vestor, thank you for coming on.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. I really appreciate the time. It's an honor to be here and happy to talk Frax with you.
Yeah, I think I remember. I think like when we started Flywheel, you wanted to come on. You asked to come on, and
I did.
You did.
It wasn't that big then.
You weren't that big then. I was just like, I guess like I wasn't too familiar with you or like how you contributed to the community just yet. And like we were just starting as a podcast and we weren't that big, to be honest.
I was just a lurker then, guys. Just a lurker.
Just a lurker. I mean, don't we all just start off as lurkers?
That's how we all start. Isn't that how we all start? I mean,
yeah. And like, let's get into it from there. Like how, you start, what's your background? How'd you first get into DeFi and what like really interested you? And like, when did you first really took the DeFi pill?
Oh, okay. Well, I started in crypto. I was a Bitcoin maxi in 2014.
Solid.
Started there and, kept hearing about altcoins and never buy an altcoin and just buy Bitcoin. And it's been that for probably until summer of 2020, like a little bit after the summer of DeFi summer. I had a friend of mine. I knew what Ethereum was. I was at the ICO launch of Ethereum's page when you could get like 2,000 Ethereum for like 1 Bitcoin or something. And
did you participate? No,
I didn't do it. No, I didn't do it. I did buy Ethereum at like $7 for like a small amount, and I played with it a little bit, but I didn't participate. I should have. Might be a different conversation right now if I had done that, But anyway, yeah, I stuck with Bitcoin for a long time, which has still been really good for me. And then summer of 2020, a little bit after, I think it was August or September. So it was just, kind of cooling off a little bit. I had a friend of mine who was saying how he could earn yield on Ethereum. And I was like, what do you mean earn yield? Like, what are you talking about? And he was referring to like back in the day, it was like the compound strategies, with like never drop and all that. It was like, he was showing me that. I'm like, he got on a Zoom call with me and
it's a good friend right there.
He helped me install MetaMask. I was like, what the hell is a MetaMask? I knew how to use a hardware wallet. I had a Trezor and I was doing all that. And, I said, okay, I knew how to buy Ethereum. I just never used it with a browser, with a wallet like that. So he shows me all that. He gets me on the app. And that was it. I started my first, leveraged position there. And that's my, not my first on-chain experience. My first on-chain experience was in 2014 when a friend of mine sent me some like $1 worth of Bitcoin, and it took like, 1 second. And that's what sparked it for me. I was like, okay, wait a minute. How does this work? Like, how do you get, Bitcoin from one phone to another phone in like literally 5 seconds? So that's how. So I started in 2000. So the DeFi part started in 2020. I'm a Bitcoin maxi turned an ETH maxi. Then I got into the Olympus area. You guys remember that pretty well, right? Got a little burnt there. I did well. I can't complain. But I burned my fingers there. And then it was actually with Zeus, the founder of Olympus, right? He was talking CVX and FXS and how he wanted to accumulate that for Olympus. And I was like, what the hell is Frax? And what is CVX? I had no idea, So I started reading, I started getting in the Discord. And so I'm a Bitcoin maxi turn ETH maxi turn CVX maxi, and then eventually fractionalist. And then now I really do consider myself kind of a stablecoin maximalist. I really do love everything stablecoin now.
It's funny. I have this like survey out now because I'm getting a whitelist together for a future partner of Frax that's going to be announced October 24th. Doing like a fun discovery game. I'll leave it at that. And like I got a few answers of like they discovered Frax through Olympus DAO.
Yep, that is how I discovered it. Which kind of an interesting place to discover it, and but it led me down a path. And then once I started and then I found my home there. It's like talking with Sam and asking questions and just being able to be as open as possible. It just you could just tell when there's an authenticity there. And I never thought I would come from Bitcoin maximalist to stablecoin maximalist, but I do agree with Sam's thesis on how that is after Bitcoin and Ethereum. I really do believe that stablecoins are the next huge narrative in the crypto industry.
Yeah, let's get into that. What is your stablecoin maximalist thesis? Like, how would you put the stablecoin maximalist thesis in your own words, and how does Frax fulfill that?
Okay. I think it's way bigger than anybody I've ever listened to talks about. Like
Even
much,
me,
much
even
bigger.
Sam.
Yes.
Yeah, like I think it's as well. Maybe Sam has the idea. I'm sure he does. But like, you talk stable coins to people, and they're like, whatever. I think of it as trillions of dollars. I really do. I really think of it as part of the new financial system. The fact that there's ongoing legislation and regulation with the U.S. and Hong Kong and all around the world, it's just telling you that this is here to stay. It's not going anywhere, and it is crypto's number one use case. How does Frax fit in?
Hold on. Before you get the crypto Vestor, do you think it's bigger than Ethereum and Bitcoin?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Oh, you heard it here, folks.
Yeah, it just has to be. Look,
Thank you for the soundbite. I agree.
Tether is the largest, right? We all agreed, like we all know that Tether is the company that makes the most money in crypto, right? Like it has like the most T-bills, like after Mexico and whatever the other countries are. I mean, it's like it's easily going to be the third or fourth spot in our real world assets. And stable coins are going to be, you're going to be able to mint stable coins against those assets. So it's clearly going to be in the trillions of dollars. Just like gold. Like think about it. Gold is worth what, like 7 trillion? Mm-hmm. But the money supply is 16 trillion. So US dollars is 16 trillion, but gold is 7 trillion. So yeah, I think Bitcoin will be huge too. I'm not like, saying it's not going to be Bitcoin. But that's kind of how I'm viewing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Agreed.
So yeah, I do believe it'll be bigger than Bitcoin and Ethereum. I think it will outgrow because you have the real world assets coming in, in the form of T-bills and other things, that it's going to be way bigger than just the market cap and the Bitcoin and Ethereum.
So the part of like the stablecoin maximalist thesis that Sam puts out is you have to have the collateral like be earning yield against the risk-free rate. Are you saying that there'll be other like stablecoins? Do you see other stablecoins earning against like a little bit riskier things? And because like, do you see that working? Because we just saw what happened with like USDR with the illiquid real estate fiasco. Like what is the line that you draw for stablecoins?
I draw a line that's like so far out there that it's going to blow your mind. It's like, I think that their stable coins are going to be like reward points. Like everyone's going to have them. American Express, Visa, Starbucks. Like there's going to be, yes, there's going to be some big ones. I really do. Tether and I think Frax and a few others are obviously going to be centerpieces, right? But I do think that there's going to be a lot of companies that will come out with their own stable. I think MasterCard and Visa are going to come out with their own stable coin. Like I think American Express is going to come. I think we're going to have Amex USD. I think we're going to have Visa USD. I just don't think people see it yet. But PayPal is a perfect example. Like PayPal USD. I just think that it's going to keep happening and happening and happening. And, I think it's going to be an explosion of real world assets. And there's going to be different ones. And there might be different use cases and backed by different items. And I'm sure we'll have some that will completely fail, like Luna, and there'll be some that'll be as big as Tether and not bigger.
I got it. Yeah, no, I agree with your thesis of we're going to have a world of hundreds, if not thousands, of different stablecoins.
Yeah.
And with these points programs, they're basically like, especially
it's a stablecoin.
It's a stablecoin. Yeah. Whether it's like Venmo, private stablecoin, Starbucks, and your app, private stablecoin. Yeah.
Exactly. So why wouldn't these companies want to have an on-chain record of who's spending what where, and then they can even reward an airdrop, like rewards to their loyal customers through the chain? So there's just a world that nobody is like kind of exploring right now, and I think it's going to be huge.
And imagine if you have like a llama NFT and you get like double the points for having the llama NFT.
Imagine that. Just
imagine. Well, I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Or if you get like a rebate for using Frax,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's how I kind of see things from the stablecoin world.
Yeah, this guy, it has me hyped up. This has me hyped up. Let's
So, so,
go.
so, so let me ask you guys a follow-up question. What are the second order effects to Amex USD, Venmo USD, or Chase USD, or even your rinky-dink Macy's USD? Like what are the implications of that? What are the second order effects here?
Second order effects. I think that you're going to have some major successes and you're going to have some pretty bad failures too. I mean, it's clear that not everybody knows how to design a stablecoin, right? That's hard stuff. And after learning a lot about what I've learned in the last 2 years, with Curve and Convex and Frax, like what Sam is trying to do is and the team, it's not an easy task. I think that if you have to ask me, I think that when it comes to on-chain stablecoins, I think Frax has got probably the best team in the world. I think maybe it's Dai as a close second. I'm going to respect Dai. I'm not anti Maker or whatever. I think we're going to do better. I think we're going to surpass them, and I'll explain my thesis there. But I think they're the two core on-chain stablecoins that have real traction. And I think they're going to bring Frax is going to bring into the fold the Paxos and PayPal side, which is like nothing that we've ever seen before. See, Tether and Circle are doing, that's kind of easy. Well, I don't want to say that's easy, but put $1 in the bank or $1 in T-bills and issue $1 on chain. That's it. It's just that simple for them, right? I mean, there's not all these complex AMOs and Curve and incentives, and it's a much different mechanism that Frax is trying to do than and that whole on-chain thing, is I kind of view Frax as the on-chain version of Tether.
Yes. And
That's
then
what I
value goes to VEFXS stakers.
Exactly. So imagine VEFXS as kind of like the board members. We are early board members of Tether. Well, I'm not calling it. We're early board members of Frax, which is an online or on-chain version of Tether. So we will be making the decisions on the direction of that protocol and of that stablecoin, just as if we had a seat on the board of Tether, if we were there now and we're dealing with billions and billions of dollars in supply. Yeah. But people don't think of it like that. People kind of think of, it'll get to 100 billion and then it'll go to zero, like Luna did. They're not thinking bigger picture, like what does it do to the financial system?
What does it do to the financial system?
I was going to say, like Crypto Vestor, let me frame it for you. The year is 2030. We now have 100 bajillion stable coins. We have Macy coins. We have JC Penney coins. We have, Sears USD, but then those went away. Obviously, we all know that. So, right. There are all these like USDs out there. Curve pairs are everywhere. Liquidity is flooding. What does that market look like?
Oh, man. Okay. Imagine curve pools for all of these stable coins, right?
Okay.
Imagine 200 curve pools. Imagine 100 to 150 of them paired with Frax, PayPal USD, and or Paxos. So every time a transaction happens with any stable coin, in whether it's Amex or whatever, it's being exchanged with either Curve USD or Frax on Curve. So imagine a world where every transaction that's stablecoin related actually has something to do with a Curve transaction, which passes through and sees Frax or sees Curve USD as the two main pillars, maybe even Dai, as three big pillars on chain.
It's the settlement, the stablecoins of settlement.
Yes, exactly.
So do you think it would go, let's say I don't know why I keep on picking on Macy's, but let's say I have Macy's USD.
It's nostalgia.
I want to swap it for like Venmo USD. No matter what, I would have to go through the Curve.
I think Macy's USD is going to be a meta pool on the Frax BP or Frax USD or whatever base pool there is at the time. And you're going to be exchanging your Macy's USD for Frax and or Curve USD using one of these major base pools. But even then, like, it's hard to envision that because we're kind of far away from that. But think of it like right now. Let's just talk about what we see right now. Like, and I can see it right now with PayPal USD. Like, Sam's been throwing hints. He's been throwing hints about PayPal. It's happening, but nobody believes it. So Paxos has a deal with PayPal, right? They're issuing the PayPal USD. Sam has been in talks with Paxos. That's okay. Just like we have a base pool with Paxos, I'm assuming we're going to have a base pool with PayPal USD. He's already kind of said that a couple of times. And what's that mean? That means that PayPal USD is going to be, the supply is going to go up as a result of Frax's growth, and Frax's supply is going to go up as a result of PayPal's growth. So I can see a world where, on chain, there could be billions of dollars of PayPal USD, and it could be paired with Frax. And when swaps are happening there, they're going to, these PayPal USD is going to PayPal's front end, Web 2 version of the account. And so that's where I think the Frax card might actually come in. Like, I think that eventually they may do a deal with PayPal, and PayPal users, it's not going to be a Frax card. It's a PayPal card. They're going to handle all of the compliance and all of the issues, but the swaps in the back end are going to be from Frax to PayPal USD on a curve pool.
Let's get into these. I want to keep getting into the Frax Alpha and like Frax, like little tidbits you've been picking up. But before we get to that, like, let's kind of like set the stage, set the context of it. I think you've already like explained your Frax thesis, but like to like someone that's new to Frax, let's say like, I've been in DeFi for a bit. I just stumbled upon Frax. Maybe I listened to Flywheel. Maybe I saw Sam on a space. But how would you explain Frax to someone who's heard about it for the first time but is familiar with DeFi?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I would say it's probably one of the safest on-chain stablecoins, decentralized stablecoins, next to Curve USD and DAI. And so if you're looking to do something on-chain, I would gravitate towards Frax, one of those three. Frax being probably my favorite. It's hard for me to pick a side because there are things I like about Curve USD, the whole decentralized nature of it. And there are things I like about Frax where it's utilizing real world assets like T-bills. Bringing that yield on chain is going to revolutionize. It's going to explode Frax's supply. And so that's how I would explain it to a DeFi user. But as far as to a broader user or someone who wants to invest in Frax, and this is not financial advice, but I would say that Frax is the equivalent of on-chain Tether, where you could see all of the transparency. You can see all of the transactions. You can see all of the AMO. Exactly. So very transparent.
You can see the balance sheet.
Block
by block.
Block by block changing balance sheet. I mean, literally. No other, not even DAI. Like I can't tell you right now what DAI has. Like I don't even know. I can't even figure it out. So they don't have an on-chain balance sheet that I can tell. It's mixed in with corporate bonds. I'm not saying that's bad, but it's a lot riskier. So I agree with what Sam is saying as far as going to the safest off-chain yield, which is T-bills and eventually a Fed Master account. That makes a lot of sense. It's kind of like what Tether is doing. I mean, if you think about it, as much Tether fund as we listen to and we get on a daily basis, they've kind of done what Frax wants to do, minus the on-chain part, right? Like they've invested in dollars and T-bills, and they're backing a core. But that's the thing, is they're not transparent, so we don't know. But with Frax, we're going to be able to see everything, and I don't think that's never happened. Not even with DAI. You could argue that Curve USD is maybe a second because it's pretty transparent too, but it's only on-chain ETH based tokens, right? So it's like Curve LPs and things like that. It's not really off-chain. Now, Frax is bringing off-chain data on-chain so that we can figure out how many T-bills they have, what bank accounts they're in, how many dollars, how much USDC, how much Paxos, how much PayPal USD is in these accounts. So I think that, I think where we're going is probably bigger than what most people are expecting.
That's how it usually happens. And, talk about, bringing things to light. There's no one that does it better than you, Crypto Vestor. And I'm wondering, how did you start being, the truffle sniffer of Frax Alpha? Like, did it happen naturally? Did you wake up one day and was just like, I need to find out as much alpha as possible? Like, how did it start?
Yeah. I just got the feeling it started with Convex initially. Like, how C2 is just kind of behind the scenes all the time, and there's no one out there talking about Convex, really. Very few people. Everybody left, bear market things, everybody's gone. And I just said, somebody's got to start talking about this and, just explain.
First follower.
Right. And then it kind of evolved into Frax, and I was like, nobody's doing this. And you guys are the only ones that were really doing it. And I would listen to your podcasts and a little bit of Leviathan too. Sam, would obviously bring up a lot of Frax stuff. But other than that, there's not a whole lot of people that are really out there. There might be 3 or 4 threaders that are out there, and that's it. And so and I know that Frax, has a stance on paying for marketing and all that. And I'm like, well, why don't I just explain what I know or what I think I know? And maybe I'm wrong. I mean, maybe I'm overshooting and it's not as big as I think it is, and maybe I'm right. I don't know. We'll see. We're going to find out in the next 2 years, I think.
Yeah. And so what do you think is going to happen 2 years from now? What alpha have you uncovered? Like, what are your hunches? My
hunches. Okay, I think BAM is going to be bigger than we kind of expected. And
Can you explain BAM?
Yeah, I got a little bit of alpha from Sam the other day. He doesn't say much about that. That's one he keeps really close to the vest. But he did say something about, how, it could offset a lot of the whole collateralization ratio issues. And what I think they're going to do with it, and it's hard for me to explain it because I don't really know how it's working, but I think there's a way where people will be able to lock liquidity into the AMM, right, into BAM, and they earn some kind of reward or something like a fee, and Frax can draw upon that locked liquidity. So it doesn't just leave the AMM if there's a downturn in the market. They can draw from that liquidity or something to offset any peg with the dollar. So if for whatever reason there's like a D-peg in USDC or USDP or Paxos, whatever, they can somehow fill the AMO with I don't know. I mean, that's a speculation. I'm not saying that's what it is, but I'm thinking it has something to do with that. And that could really change things because it could be really the first dollar peg stablecoin that doesn't really rely on just the asset backing the dollar. It can actually, if there's ever a DPEG event, it can fill that void.
Can we explain this a little bit more? Like, how does it fill it uses the locked liquidity
so
in the BAM?
Let's say you have a BAM and you have and again, I don't know this is not, confirmed or anything, but this is just my speculation. So let's say you have BAM, you have this AMM, but you got all these users putting in their tokens because they want to be able to swap whatever, but the tokens can't be removed. It's locked liquidity. It's like the first AMM that the liquidity would be locked, right? I mean, for a period of time. I don't know if it's 1 year, 4 years, whatever. I'm, guessing at that. Mm-hmm. And then, so you got all this liquidity. Maybe you have, $1 billion one day, in BAM. And, maybe 40% of it is locked. And, people who've locked the liquidity in there are earning, rewards, like a fee or whatever. And so that's the reason for them to lock in there. And then, if ever there's like a DPEG event, let's say USDC or USDP goes down by 5%. So it's at 95 cents, right? Like Frax can borrow from the AMM and fill that gap in the AMO so that the peg stays steady at $1. something like that, like something where it's using the liquidity. It'll pay for that liquidity. Like Frax will issue like fees or something for the lock, while peg is restored. But something to that effect where the if there's ever a major depeg event, it always has some liquidity that it can borrow against, like its own borrowing facility.
Oh, so it's like
It's like a Frax lend for Frax.
Yeah, it's like a Frax lend for Frax. That's what I'm thinking. It's like some kind of Frax lend for Frax to use and be able to pay users for that money. Now, here's the thing. It's locked liquidity, so you can't have just users leave and get out, right? So they're locked in like VEFXS, right? So they won't leave. The liquidity is there, and Frax can count on that liquidity in the case of a depeg event. I could be wrong. It could be like the design could be different. I'm thinking it's along those lines. That's like what I'm picking up on.
So it's like instead of like Frax bonds, where you're like issuing like a bond, it's like you're issuing because yeah.
But the thing about the bonds is that there's a maturity, right? So there's like a time when you can get that Frax out of the bond. In this case, it's like liquidity that's in the BAM.
Liquidity.
Liquid liquidity, yeah. That's like
in contrary to lock liquidity, this is liquid liquidity.
Right. Liquid liquidity versus lock liquidity.
Yeah, this is liquid liquidity, guys.
Yeah, it's actually lick squared for those in the know.
What about lick cubed? Like, what is that? That's like liquidity from another dimension coming in.
Well, actually, that's what BAM is, right? Because you're getting, liquidity from the liquid lock liquidity.
Yeah. Yeah, BAM is liquidity cubed.
Is that off the wall, or does that make sense to you guys?
I think it makes sense in the terms of mechanics, because Frax right now, the only way for Frax to borrow is through FXPs, right? There are many ways for other people to borrow from Frax, but there isn't a reverse transaction going the other way. Right. So I think having a tool like that makes sense. I'm not quite sure on the clean mechanic design of borrowing against the lock liquidity, but in spirit, I agree. In
spirit, that's what I'm thinking. It's like somewhere along those lines. There's some kind of facility that will fill the peg if there's ever a depeg event. How it exactly works, I'm guessing because he doesn't really say much about it, but that's along those lines somewhere. And because the liquidity is locked, Frax can count on that liquidity if it ever needs it for that kind of a depeg event.
Yeah.
Yep, agreed. So there's two things that I always tell people when they think about stable coins is depegging is different from unbacking. Right. Okay, like depegging is a liquidity issue. Depegs happens all day long across so many of these pools. There could be a super tiny pool over there on ARB that has Frax, and that pool is probably depegged, right? So like depegging is a liquidity issue. Ignore that. And then on the other hand side, unbacking is when the assets in the treasury backing the stablecoin is gone. For example, via an exploit or whatever. Right. Like these are two different things. Depeg is usually a temporary thing that could be fixed with liquidity. Unbacking is a much more deeply rooted issue.
Correct.
So any more hunches you got for us?
Hunches. Well, I do think that, there's definitely something big happening with PayPal. I think it's going to happen. It will materialize. There will be a base pool. I think that's going to be, here's something. Like, I think that we all talk about, is PayPal going to bribe the pools? Yeah, I think they are. I just think it's not PayPal. It's Frax that's going to do it. Because every pool that's paired with the PayPal base pool, as long as it's paired with PayPal USD, is going to get bribed. Yeah. So it's the same design as the Frax BP. They get bribed right now. So the bribes are going to come from Frax, and maybe they're going to get payments from PayPal, just like they get payments from Paxos. And they're going to convert those into bribes, which is going to bribe the pools and boost the pools up.
A flywheel, one might call it.
A flywheel, including PayPal.
Yeah. It also makes sense the collaboration with PayPal because Frax needs something to mint, the minting and redeeming facility is the current protocol, and to mint and the average everyday user, going from PayPal to Frax makes the most sense. Like the fiat the fiat stablecoin and the on-chain stablecoin.
Right.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Can we guys, can we talk about let's assume that this PayPal thing is real. Can we talk about a post PayPal base pool world? What does that look like?
Okay, well, I think you're going to have 50 meta pools associated with the base pool, with the PayPal base pool, right? ETH and all the different tokens associated with it. So maybe 50 tokens paired up with it. It's going to be bigger than the Frax BP, right?
Yep, that's
Because I think that Frax is moving away from USDC, and choosing to use Paxos dollars, which they get paid to hold. And I think they're going to choose to use PayPal dollars, which they're going to get paid to hold too. So the only question is, which one are they going to choose more, depending on how many fees they're getting from different companies? So I think that you're going to see the Frax PP and the Frax PY, we'll call it, base pools, paired up with a bunch of different tokens. And there's going to be, hundreds of thousands of transactions that are going to happen, daily, because of movements that are happening in the PayPal app. And they're all going to be behind the scenes, transacted on Curve. And so when you use PayPal USD, you're going to be interacting with Curve and with Frax, but you just won't see it. It will just be on chain behind the scenes. You're just going to see the PayPal USD land in your PayPal account. See, that's what people aren't seeing. Like, I'm seeing it like a fusion. Like, Frax can increase their supply, help PayPal increase their supply, and it could be, if PayPal USD catches on, they have 400 million customers, then we're talking, mega size, Curve pools.
Yeah,
And
I
then
think,
there's
I think that's probably like 2 or 3 years down the road. Like, I don't know if that happens right away. The one thing I'm excited about now, which I don't know, you guys probably read Alunara's post, right, about the SDI and SFrax. Like, I think that's like more like short term. I think it's going to happen eventually. Like, the leverage situation. I mean, degens are going to be degens. Like,
explain it for the listeners. What is this SDI, SFrax, Alunara thing?
Okay, well, yeah, he posted a really cool post. I think it was on point. Basically, SDI is staked DAI, and SFrax is staked Frax, and earning yields based on the Federal Reserve rates. And so I think if you can get a stable asset that is earning 5%, leveraged up 9x, you can get up to 50 or 60%. Now, that's a little bit misleading because, and I've heard the comments online and all that, but, there's going to be borrow costs that are going to go up. Curve USD is going to, the borrow fees are going to be high. But I think there's mechanics that can be used, bribing mechanics and other types of mechanics that can be used to lower the rates while that growth happens. And so I personally, and this is kind of a funny take, but I personally think that DAI is going to help scale Curve USD and Frax.
How so?
Because I think that, and this is what's really cool, it's like DAI, like SDAI getting paired with Curve USD and SDAI getting paired with Frax is going to boost the supply of Frax and Curve USD. And if they do the leverage thing, which I think is going to happen, I don't know when it's going to happen. Maybe it's next year, whatever. I don't know the time frame. But once that leverage takes off, you're going to see people earning 20 to 30% APY on stable yields, stable coins, on Curve USD and on Frax.
So the mechanics, just so I can understand, is I see there is a, could you explain how that works mechanically?
Yes. Okay. So you have, let's use SFrax since it just launched. We understand it. Okay. You take your Frax, you stake it, you're earning 5%, right? You take your SFrax, you deposit as collateral on Curve USD, right? And now you take out, 80% or whatever the loan to value is. You take that out in Curve USD, that shoots the Curve USD supply up. Then you take that Curve USD, swap it for more Frax. Now the Frax goes up. and now you're swapping that for you're staking it for more SFrax, and then you're doing it and looping it, 9 times. So basically, $100 million, like Eleonora said in his post, $100 million of SDAI or SFrax will boost the supply by $1 billion of Curve USD and Frax at the same time. So the reason why I say like DAI is actually going to help Curve, even though they don't really use the Curve system, they have their own PSM, right? Mm-hmm. The supply of SDAI being leveraged is going to be an explosion on Curve and on Frax. It's hard. A
similar mechanic happens on the SDAI side, right?
It's going to happen on both. Like SDAI is going to have its own leverage, and SFrax is going to have its own leverage paired with Curve USD, right? And so Frax supply is going to go up. DAI supply is going to go up, but who benefits? Curve USD is going to being as far as what they're going to pay.
And then all those fees go to VRCRV. All those fees.
Those fees go back to Convex, CVX CRV holders, CRV lockers, which includes Frax. So they get the fees, and they're going to get the fees on leveraged SDAI.
Talk about money Legos.
So DAI essentially helps the Curve ecosystem because they've got so much supply.
Who would have thought hearing those words?
No one's thinking about that. But if you pair now again, are there some mechanic issues? Are there interest rate issues? Yeah, there's you got to sort a lot of things out. You have to have a bribing policy. That's where I think bribing is actually a big deal, like incentivizing pools. I think in the future that's going to be a much more important aspect of the way things work, because I think it's going to be used to control the interest rates on Curve USD to the low side, to the downside, by creating deep liquidity. And it's basically, you're just going to have this complete looping. It's kind of what happened with, I hate to compare it to Luna because I don't want to compare anything to Luna, but if you think about it, they were doing it with Anchor, right? They were doing with their Luna USD or whatever it was. They were taking dollars from there. They were basically UST. They were swapping it for whatever other token, and they were going back and depositing more into Anchor, right? And they were leveraged looping.
DGen box, yeah.
It was DGen box, yeah.
DGen box.
But this time, it's going to happen with the U.S. government federal, debt. It's going to happen with a stable rate. It's not going to explode because you have a fixed 5%, which is now leveraged up. It's not like leveraging ETH where the ETH price can go down, or leveraging Luna where the Luna price can go down. So now you have a stable yield for stable coins that could be anywhere between 20 and 30%. Now you have the real anchor, which is going to be SFrax and SDAI in the future. The real use case, the real anchor.
The real yield anchor.
And the reason why I say Curve USD is because you're going to want to use that kind of a system, because you don't want you want soft liquidations, right? You don't want, if there is a little bit of a bump, right? Maybe there's a little bump somewhere in a DPEG event or something, and you want, you don't want like to get completely liquidated. You want to be able to stay at 9x leverage or 8x leverage or 7x leverage and, still earn 20, 30, 40% on your stable coins.
So CRV USD is the resilient stable coin, just in case those like little bit bumps or a little bit dumps happen. It's like the SUV. It's like, it's like the Humvee. It's like it's the utility.
But here's the thing. Frax has got something else up their sleeve, because when I asked Sam about, Fraxland, he said one-click leverage. So Fraxland is going to launch with one-click leverage on SFrax. So they're going to do it themselves. Like Frax is going to have its own party with leveraging up SFrax. I'm sure it's going to happen. So you're going to have places like Curve USD and places like Fraxland that are going to be able to leverage up. You're going to basically be farming the Fed.
Farming the Fed.
Farming the Fed. That got to be the meme.
Fed.
Hashtag farm the Fed.
Farm the Fed. Not end the Fed. Farm the Fed.
Okay.
The tables are turned.
Let's say you had a treasury bill in US, like standard brokerage account. You got T-bills. You got me earning 5%. you would basically have to like margin that account, get a loan, buy more T-bills. I don't even know if they would allow you to do that on the same account. There's probably sophisticated TradFi things for stuff like that, but it would be very hard for the common person to do. But with DeFi, you could just one click, 9x leverage, with a little slider, and now you've earned
little slider.
Little slider. You want 7, 8, 9x. And I think people are going to be able to earn. It's gonna work. Like it's gonna last a little while. Now,
supersize me.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we're gonna see stable yields really, really big, and I think that's what's gonna start the bull run with Frax and in general with like the real world assets. I think that's what's you're gonna see millions and millions, because they're gonna be like, well, why should I go on chain and buy a T-bill or FXB? Why should I do that? Why should I stake Frax if I could just buy a T-bill on my own brokerage account? Well, maybe because you could leverage loop it 9 times and earn 30% APY.
Just maybe.
Maybe. And that's the thing is like, are you earning 30% APY with your T-bills in your brokerage account? No.
What's in your wallet?
What's in your wallet?
What's in your address?
So the degens are going to come in, and yes, but here's the thing. I think that this is one thing that lasts. And I think that if it's done and designed properly, which I think Sam and I know that, Michael from Curve, they kind of know what they're doing. I think you're going to see an explosion, and you're going to see real yields that are going to go up. It's not going to stop at 6% for SFrax. It's going to go to 20 and 30% with the leveraging. And it's going to be relatively safe because, you're going to get that 5% from the government. So it's coming.
Mm-hmm. Then let me ask you a follow-up to that then. How would all this amazingness trickle back down into Frax? Is it going to increase? Obviously, the circulating supply is going to go up and all that, but how about the treasury itself? Do you think we'll get closer to 100% collateral ratio because of this from all the... Well, Frax doesn't charge any fees, right? So how does... what are the real direct benefits to the balance sheet?
That is always a big concern, is about that collateralization rate. It's like $60 million that we're trying to fill a gap on. But I was thinking about that today, and one of the things that I was thinking about, well, first of all, in a bull market, people deposit $60 million in a day. So I think we're kind of in this bear market like mentality, and we just think like it's going to be impossible and we're never going to get there. I think that PayPal, USD, if I'm right about PayPal, I think PayPal and Paxos are going to both be paying Frax big numbers, like $1 million plus each per month. And that's going to be from just creating demand for PayPal USD and for Paxos. And so that number is going to really grow during the bull market, right? And then I think that FraxChain and frxETH are going to be the next big driver. And I'm not even discussing frxETH v2, but like thinking of it broadly, like if there's like 500,000 frxETH on FraxChain, and that 2-token design causes the APY to skyrocket to 9%, you're going to see a huge number of, I think you're going to see an exit, like a huge number of Frax staking on chain. And that yield is going to grow so big. Ethereum 10x's. So the yield 10x's, right? We're all forgetting about what happens in a bull market. But when you get Ethereum at $10,000, I mean, what you're earning every day in Frax, in ETH staking rewards is a lot bigger. So if we get to 1 million staked Frax ETH, and it's earning 7, 8, 9% because a lot of it is on FraxChain, which is coming in December or January, whenever that launches, you're going to have a huge inflow of Frax ETH, and that's going to be a huge driver for income, along with partnerships with PayPal and Paxos. So I think, Frax can earn $50 to $100 million a year. So when we talk about a $60 million gap, we're talking about maybe a year and a half. Everybody's like, oh, that could be 5 years, 10 years to get. No, I don't think it's going to be like that. You're not thinking big enough.
Because those are bull market numbers, right? Because in
They're
the
bull
bear
market
market, right now it's quite pain, and I mean that's what
Sure.
bears are made of, you
Yeah,
know.
of
So
course.
I get that, but then you've only really used frxETH as like the core revenue driver. How about this whole sfrax leveraging thing? Like, do you see any direct value accrual to the treasury here, or is it more
I
of
don't
just
think it's
a
SFRAX. It's FXBs. It's FXBs. I think SFRAX is going to generate fees for like it's the transactions on the pool, right? But I don't think it's generating like they're not Frax is not charging like a mint fee or anything like that.
Correct.
But the FXBs is where Frax can earn additional. Sam has been really quiet about this too, and it's hard to explain because it's complex. But Frax can issue an FXB for a certain duration, right? Like we'll say just like a 3-year bond. I'm sorry, a 3-month bond. But they might have like an extra month, an extra couple of days before they issue before they have the liability to issue the frax on January 1st of whatever year that they're doing, because they're doing it like in yearly. So that extra time, whether it's a month or 2 months, that I call that like that overlap gap. That is where they can either stake it on stake frax to earn extra yield, or they could stake it on frax land, or they could do other things with it. And that's in the millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. So they're going to earn all this extra fees on like kind of like leftover FXB transactions. It's hard to explain. It's hard to understand, but the FXBs, the way they're set up, the way I understand them, like they're for certain time periods. And if you buy one, like let's say you buy like we're in November. So it's kind of like so we're in November. Right now, if you had to buy a bond, you're going to buy a 3-month bond. And it's going to mature in January, you know? But maybe that's not even a good example because it's not long enough. Like maybe you buy a 6-month bond and it matures in the following January. You know, and that extra time is like time that Frax can use to do other things with yield. And that's what I think people are missing. It's hard to explain it, but I think there's a lot of mechanics that's going on behind the scenes with the way they're going to issue FXBs that is going to be a huge revenue adder besides frxETH.
FraxETH, we have FXBs, we have FraxChain. Like we have so much stuff on the horizon. It's like I don't even know what excites me the most. Like, Vestor, what excites you the most?
Man, I mean the FXBs on Curve is like it's a bond market on Curve.
I know. That's crazy.
So, like nobody's talking about it. Like, why is nobody talking about how Curve is about to become a bond market?
Well, we talked about it earlier, right when the Curve Viper fiasco happened, and you know that those facilities were started. With the F tokens, it was like, oh wait, like this could be used for Frax bonds in the future. And so like, you know, necessity breeds innovation, and that's a clear case in point of that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of use cases for the Frax bonds. Like we can't think about it now, but I'm sure DAOs are going to want to use it. You know, they're going to want to mint a lot of FXBs for like, you know, for their treasuries. They could be streamed as rewards. They could be used as incentives. I mean, there's a whole world of things, you know, that can happen. I'm excited about. I also think that there's going to be an explosion of incentivization, bribing that is way beyond what like we can comprehend. I think
you mentioned that earlier. Can you go into what you mean by
I'm a
that?
convex guy, right? So I understand that whole world, and the truth is, Frax has been, you know, has had their cake and eating it too, because they've basically had their way with all of the Curve emissions for the whole bear market, like everything. They pretty much monopolized the whole thing, which is great. I mean, they've been able to accumulate as much CVX as possible. They've got the cheap emissions. They're earning for their pools, which is awesome. But here's the thing: if we really want to be a true flywheel, there has to be someone else on the other side, you know, that's going to push that counterbalance, that's going to get the flywheel really turning. And I think there's going to be whether it's USDM or Paxos. I don't even know if it'd be Paxos. There will be other like stablecoin projects that will start incentivizing. Curve price will go up, and I think that Frax will start incentivizing FXB pools. So people will want to mint more FXBs. So and they're going to be bribing SFrax pools probably too, so that people are going to be incentivized to mint more SFrax. That's another thing like about Curve that I don't think people will get, and it's complicated, so it's hard to understand it. I understand that it's complex, but I don't see Curve as just a DEX, and Sam is right about that. Like Curve is not just a swapper. It's not a DEX. It is an incentivization tool, and there is nothing else like it in DeFi. And here's an example. Let's say I want to, and we saw it a little bit with the Viper hack. Let's say I want to, I'm MakerDAO and I want, people to come stake their DAI, right? Well, I just advertise a 5% rate and that's it. That's what MakerDAO does. They don't go beyond that, right? It's like the rate now is 8%. Everybody apes in, right? But in Curve, it's different. See, in Curve, you could set up a pool. You could set up a SFrax pool, okay, and you can throw $10,000 of incentives at it, and you get an APY that's 7,000% in the beginning, right? So it incentivizes. I call Curve the incentivizor. So it incentivizes people to go to Frax, to mint the SFrax, to get that. To stake the Frax, get the SFrax, and deposit it in the pool. DAI doesn't do that. Maker doesn't do that. And so Frax knows how to use these mechanics to their advantage. It's like a lever and a fulcrum. They can really, really apply pressure with bribing and incentives to get what they want out of the system. And so Frax is about to get what it wants out of the system very soon, like I think with the launch of SFrax and FXBs. And they're going to use incentives in a very creative way. Look at what happened with the Viper hack. You remember that night when Michael went on the Telegram group and he's like, he just created this LP pair for FraxChain. And it's like, he was able to basically get out of that whole lending situation by incentivizing people to lend their curve to FraxLend. So with Curve, you can incentivize almost anything. And that's where I think Frax kind of understands. Sam understands that. And so I think there's going to be a Cambrian explosion of incentives and growth and leverage that's about to hit. We don't see it yet, but I think January, February, I think we're going to start to really see that ball to start snowball.
So once there are other projects in the arena playing these loan incentive bribe games, that's when the flywheel really kicks in.
Exactly.
And basically, like what was supposed to happen with the 4 pool before that shit blew up, it's going to happen a much more organic way.
Again. And it might actually be PayPal. It ironically might be PayPal. Like they might be giving Frax for whatever, X number of dollars per month. And they for minting a PayPal USD or for holding PayPal USD, just like they do for Paxos. And because PayPal can't technically bribe or incentivize a pool, but Frax can. And so they're just taking their income and just basically pairing it up, like doing what they do with the Frax BP. They're going to be bribing all of the PayPal pools, just like they do with Frax BP. So they are essentially going to get bribed by Frax using PayPal income, PayPal revenue. So yeah, I think that could happen. And I'm sure it could happen with other USDM, Athena. There's Curve USD is going to get, a certain amount of bribe. And there's all these different dynamics that are going to come to play. You can't have a flywheel with just one player. That's not a flywheel. Think about it. You got a flywheel. You got, it's got to turn, right? You need one on one side and one on the other side to turn. So I think there's going to be 2 or 3 big dominant players, and it's going to leverage up. That incentives along with leverage are going to explode Frax and and DAI and
We're
all
cooking
of them.
here. Incentives, leverage, stables.
Yeah.
This is the ingredients for the bull run.
All the ingredients for like,
All the ingredients
the
for
Powerpuff Girls, right? Some sugar, spice, everything nice, and everything's just gonna blow up.
Exactly.
But
And
We need people to make that meme.
so CryptoVestor, I want to switch gears a bit and go into the other side of the flywheel, which is the curve convex side. You're obviously a huge proponent of that ecosystem as well. Could you share a bit more about what are the latest happenings? What is the price action, the community action, things of that nature?
Sure. Well, I mean, we're in a bear market, so it's obviously quiet. But I think there's some really big moves that Convex made in recent last couple of weeks, and I think it affects Frax too to a degree. I think them acquiring Prisma and FXN, which I think is huge too. I really like what FXN is doing with
we do too here.
So I think that they're going to be accumulating those tokens. I do think that Curve is still going to be and during the next bull market, I think that we're going to see a lot more Curve getting added to Convex, and then I think that it's going to be a major player of this whole incentivization game. And then I think
I'm sorry. What's Prisma and FXN? I was thinking of FX Protocol, but that's different.
No, FXN is FX Protocol.
That is FX Protocol.
Oh,
that's their
okay.
token. FXN.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So Prisma's kind of cool because Prisma, and this relates to Frax. So Prisma is kind of like a curve for staking LSDs. So they have their Prisma token, which hasn't come out yet. But think of it this way: you'll have a platform you can, where Frax and Lido and all these different players, you deposit users come in and deposit the LSDs, right? But Frax can incentivize through their CVX, can vote for more of the Prisma to go to a pool so that frxETH is the more dominant player in the Prisma system. So it gets everybody else having to, use incentives, more Prisma tokens so that otherwise Lido is going to be way down and frxETH is going to be way up. And because they already own a lot of CVX, they already have a head start on the voting, and that's going to boost frxETH usage. And it's also going to increase revenue because Frax is, so Prisma is sort of like an auxiliary tool that can be used to boost frxETH. And FXN, right now, you're able to deposit staked Lido in FXN, but in the future, I have a feeling we're going to be seeing staked frxETH in there.
Yes, we talked about that.
So so once that happens, you're seeing Frax dominate using their Convex, right? And that's where I think you're going to see a lot of incentive games. There's a lot of other things happening. Sam mentioned something about a special VE tokenomics for FXS or FPIS holders, I think it is, or FPIS lockers. There's a special bribing mechanism for these tokens. I'm not even sure what he's talking about because it's so new. He mentioned it once in the Telegram, and I just happened to see it. But yeah, there's going to be some pretty interesting things going on in the next couple of months.
I have a question. So my light keeps going on and off. But yeah, so my question is, you said earlier, Frax has effectively monopolized the curve wars. And one effect of that is you had a lot of DeFi projects where not a lot, but you had some DeFi projects, certain DeFi projects we're going to go try to go to Aura now. Oh, go to this, the hot new VE33, this and that. I guess how do you because everybody wants to win the war of said VE system. How do you get projects back to Curve and say hey, you're going to get more value from Curve than if you try to go to a smaller place? And
I think that Balancer is probably going to do okay too. I'm not anti-balancer in any way, but when you hear a project launching a stablecoin, their first reaction isn't, oh, let me pull up a balancer pool. It's just not, I hate to say it that way, but that's the truth. I mean, like, they all launch curve pools, and I don't hear anybody talking about a Uniswap pool for, AMOs, like, no one does that. That's why I say curve is more than just a DEX. It's a tool like mint and redeem. It's a tool to create stable swaps so that a stablecoin can actually run effectively. And Balancer may be able to do it because from what I hear, there's a lot of code related to, and I'm really cool with, I know Redacted is using them. I'm pretty cool. I like what Sammy is doing there. That's another stablecoin, like, Dinero, like, we're getting so many of them. And I think they're going to be using Balancer and Aura and Curve as well. But I don't think that, and I think there's room for every one of them. Like, it's not like one or the other. I think that there could be room for, 2 or 3 players like that without really it being too big of a problem.
So
it's not like one has to win.
Yes.
But I do think it's interesting that Uniswap, flipped the semi-fee switch, recently.
Yeah, I can't think of like a bigger dichotomy in crypto than Uniswap versus Curve. Like, one is like protocol centric. The other is more the other way, the vice versa.
Yeah, Uniswap. I hate to say it because it is what it is, but it's like a useless token. It doesn't earn you anything, and that kind of came to light now with this last thing that they did, where they turned on a fee switch to use the front end. Okay, I'm okay with that. Everybody's allowed to do whatever they want. That's fine, but what about the token holders? Do you
know where that goes? That's 0.15.
It goes to the labs.
It goes to the labs. It goes to the investors. Mm-hmm. So these guys are taking in, the LPs are taking in funds, and now the lab's taking it. It's like, but the token holders are getting nothing. And just that's why I see, like, and not to mention that Uniswap probably has that great volume and people use it. It's simple to use. It's very simple interface and all of that. But as far as stablecoin design, it's Curve. And
it's Curve, 100%.
That's what it is. And as far as winning the Curve wars, yeah, I think like Frax already won it. Like, they already have the majority of the pools. Everything is paired with Frax, and more to come. They have a lot of CVX. They're probably going to continue to get more CVX. They probably are working with 2 big companies like Paxos and PayPal, which are going to now, Sam's got those ears, right? He's probably talking to those people. He's like, hey guys, you might want to buy some CVX. You might want to start voting for your pool. You might, things like that are happening behind the scenes. We just don't see them.
Various things are occurring.
Exactly.
Since you're part of the Frax information distribution and network, kind of like this like hive mind we have here within the Frax community, what are your thoughts on how Frax information is dispersed throughout DeFi and crypto in general? Because it's funny, like, some crazy things will get announced by Sam, like, for example, FraxChain, like back in June, July, when we were interviewing Sam about frxETH v2, and then like the last third of the interview was just all about FraxChain, and me and Kid are just sitting there like,
yeah,
I saw it.
Yeah, and then like we published an article about it, and then it took like 2 days for like to get picked up, and then after, like, you saw the wider crypto community react accordingly. I'll put it that way. But like, yeah, what are your thoughts on like how, like, because Frax doesn't have traditional marketing per se, or
it's obviously a weak spot, right? To be completely honest, right? So it is a weak spot. I understand, Sam's stance on it. I'm not against it. I don't think I think that as Frax grows, more like outlets are going to be like opened up, like, like what you guys are doing, what I'm doing. I would love to have a team, of like 10 or 20 people like me that are just putting out information. And I think there's going to be analysts too. Think about it. When you get into the billions, I don't think it's just going to be 5 or 6 developers. Like, there's going to be more. It's just not there yet. But yeah, I agree. It's probably slow to get information out. They love to leak stuff out like in the middle of the night. I was up at 3 a.m, the day that they launched SFrax. I was like, is this going to happen or like what? You know, and,
They just love to do stuff just really late at night.
and they're
Especially
good builders.
brutally on like a Thursday or a Friday too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like what? No, it's coming tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow at midnight. You know, it's like. So I don't know. Yeah, I think that eventually, I think that's going to fill in. There's probably going to be a role for someone in like a business development. But I'm thinking, you know, wait for Frax to get to, you know, a couple of billion, you know, 10 billion supply,
Yeah.
20 billion, 30 billion. Then you're going to see different things happen.
Yeah. I really like it right now. I get where Sam's coming from. In terms of it's all organic.
Right.
I mean, yeah, we get like a grant from the Frax DAO, but like Frax doesn't tell us like directly like, oh, what to do with this and that. No, like we're pretty independent. And like oftentimes, like, well, like especially with a Frax check over the past several months, it isn't the most flattering per se.
Yep.
I
call it as I see
That's about
it.
to change, though, guys. That's about to change because, you know, with the growth of SFrax and FXBs, you're going to see some big changes. I really do think the bull run is going to start early next year, and I think that's going to top out.
Oh, you think it's be early? You're super bullish.
I'm super bullish. I think the top is going to be in January, first quarter of 2025. I don't think everybody thinks it's going to be in November. I think it's a little bit pushed forward. Like I think it's going to be a little sooner. And I think it starts in January of 2024.
So we get a full year of bullies.
A full year of ballistic growth.
It could, yeah, that'd be nuts. Because like I'm thinking like juke fake because it's just like no. Here's
why. Here's now maybe altcoins won't do so well like right in the first half of 2024, but they will in the second half. But I do think that the Bitcoin ETF will get approved on January 10th. If you look at that chart that's been floating around, everybody seems to float it around, but nobody seems to talk about the dates. January 10th is like it's not the last date on there. I think it's March 15th, but I don't think they want to wait until March 15th. That's just a month before the halving. I think they want they want to get that all set up and fixed up earlier. So then the date before March 15th is January 10th. And I think they'll all get approved on that week. And then I think you're going to see an explosion. Bitcoin probably runs up to, it'll probably be 35, 40,000 by the time January rolls around. And then I think you see it run up to 45, 50. And then you might start seeing February, you know, March, April, you start seeing some of the alts run a little bit. Along with ETH.
The ETF has been this carrot on a stick in front of me since I first got into crypto.
Me too. Since 2014.
Yeah.
2014.
I've been talking about it forever.
Yeah.
Mark my words, it is going to happen within the next 90 days. We are going to get an ETF. You got it on video. We are going to get an ETF. I don't know if it's going to be December, if it's going to be January, maybe it's February, but we are going to get an ETF early next year. It is going to happen.
I mean, we saw what happened with the fake news in Cointelegraph, right. A price.
Exactly. Things like that don't just happen. They're kind of like signs, like in the making. Like that doesn't just happen unless it's going to happen. You know, it's like, it's going to happen, guys. I mean, you don't have guys like BlackRock and all these people involved without that stuff happening.
So let me ask you a more practical question then. How do we position for that?
Yeah, that's a good question because I've been thinking about that a lot. I think...
Let's brainstorm. This is not financial advice. All of us are extremely biased, obviously, without even needing to say it. All right.
Okay, so I think that well, I don't know if you guys are into Bitcoin, but I mean, I think that Bitcoin will probably run between January and March, April. No, a little bit past that because of the halving, right? So I think July, August, September, you're going to have this kind of build up to like 60,000 again, probably August, September. And then once that happens, then all the alts just kind of explode like right at the previous all-time high of like 65, 66, that whatever it was. So I think alts run from September onward until probably March of 2025.
Okay, so wait, hold on. Let's look at the timeline, right? So you're saying from January to March is like this BTC time.
January to September.
January to September is going to.
I don't because remember. Well, April is the halving. So May, June, July, maybe July, August, September area. That's when things start getting hot, right, with Bitcoin. And then people start taking that Bitcoin, start moving it into Ethereum. I would say around that August, September-ish area in 2024. And it runs up until February, March. ETH runs up until February, March 2025, tops out around March 2025, and then we see a drop. And I mean, it could be topping out at 10,000, maybe 15,000. My target is 8 to 10,000 on ETH. I'm sorry, 8 to 15,000 on ETH, and on Bitcoin, it's anywhere between 90 and 120,000. See, I don't think it's going to be huge. Like everybody's talking about 250 and 2. Like, I think that's what's going to cause the altcoins and ETH to run even harder, because they're going to be like, okay, it went from 60 to 120. Okay, I got a 2x, and they're going to run into ETH, and it's going to go from 1,500, it's going to run up to 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, boom, boom, boom. It's going to do its thing, and then you're going to see the FXSs of the world. I mean, I'm thinking $100 plus, $150 for FXS. I'm thinking $100 for CVX. And then the revenue starts building
When
up.
are these? These are, I guess, in January 2025 then?
Yeah, like you're going to start seeing that move in January 2025, and it probably tops out in March of 2025. That's what I think.
$150.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
not
like
financial advice.
Like a 30x.
Dude, yeah, that CR ratio would be, it's done. It's like
It's cleaned out.
cleaned out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's done. That's why I think everybody's thinking kind of too small, And honestly, like it could be even higher. Like if the Treasury bill thing really catches on, and like there's $10 billion in frac supply, and Curve has got $100 billion on Curve, and Curve is probably trading $10, $6 to $10. The incentives are going nuts. They're crazy. So yeah, I think that could happen. Yeah, and then of course the music stops at some point. Something bad's going to happen. It always does, and we rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so get go back to your reliable BTC early next year.
Yeah.
And then halfway through the year, switch it back to our homegrown Ethereum.
Run it back to ETH. Run it back to ETH.
The home turf.
Right.
And then for the beginning of 2025, you kind of go to the far outfields.
Go into the far outfield and all. Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
Exactly. That's kind of what it is. And really, that's not that high. How far away is that? That's 12 months away. 13 months, 14 months away.
This is your bull market playbook brought to you by Crypto Vestor.
Yeah.
Yes.
And maybe, we're gonna. This is gonna be recorded, so we're gonna be able to come back to it. I really am a firm believer of it. I've been watching the charts every day, studying everything, and I think that's a very realistic target. I think that people think that the top was really in November of 2021. It's really not what happened. The top really was in May of 2021.
June.
And that really puts it out a lot longer. If you add those months, that's why I think the target is closer to the beginning of 2025, first quarter, than the end of. And if it's the end of 2025, okay, that means we run up further. I mean, I'm not going to be sad about that. But I do think that that's.
Like, I want to be wrong about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I remember that, because we had the double top.
Mm-hmm.
And the second
I don't think we're going to get a double top this time.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be a big blow off top. It's never the same. It's like whatever you think it's going to happen, everybody's comparing COVID. Everybody's comparing the drop we had in March. It's not happening. It's just not.
Like the one lesson I learned is you can't put a number on it. We have these expectations and you have like a playbook to follow. But if you say this is my number to sell, or we reach that or this, I'm going to do this. You can't play it like that. You just have to play it like the numbers can be like a guide, but they aren't set in stone. Exactly. And you have to, the way to play it is just see the environment or the market and then see the top signals. See the top signals, and once you see them, once you see Tai Lopez run, once you see
talking about Olympus, once you see Tai Lopez doing something with FXS, sell.
Oh God!
Yo, Tai Lopez actually had a Olympus fork. That was insane.
It should have been my signal.
Yeah. Like,
So-
But that's my point. Like when you start seeing celebrities and you start seeing everybody talking about when your grandma's calling you about crypto advice, sell.
this
You know,
is
like when your neighbors start asking you about how to log into Coinbase, sell.
my
It's like-
my favorite top signal, the one that worked best for me was I have a friend she's on multiple dating apps, and like when she like matches with someone and they start talking like they know everything about Bitcoin, and they like know that once they like
That's a
talk
top-
once they talk like that, then like, and I remember, I'll never forget, she was like sending me screenshots like, Dave, this is the time, like
This is
like the
time.
first time, yeah, like first time I didn't listen, and then the second time she was doing it, like I saw one message, I felt like so much like shame. I'm just
But
like,
here's the
all
thing, guys. Here's the problem. Like, okay, so call it. Let's say it's March 2025. Bitcoin's at like 120 or 115 or whatever the number is, and things are toppy. Things are feeling. But you know what's going to happen, man. We've been there before. You know, they're going to talk about the ETF and how many millions of dollars are coming into the ETF, and institutions are coming, and we're going to 250, and it's going to be like ballistic, insane. Like, honestly, I think it's going to be bigger than the last run, because the last run we didn't really have the institutions. Like, but when you have like 10 ETFs or 6 ETFs getting approved, you're going to have so much hype. CNBC, Fox Business, blah, blah, blah. It's all this. Like, we never had any of that. Like, yeah, we had Luna. We had Luna. We had, Do Kwon. We had, 3 Arrows Cap. I mean, nothing on the level of what's happening with Bitcoin.
It's going to make the last cycle look like the minor leagues. Like, these are like major. Yeah.
Now, I don't think Bitcoin goes to 250 this cycle. I think it's more like 90 to 130. It's in that range. People are going to be disappointed with that because they're going to think it should have gone to 250, just like last time. It's the same thing. But I think Ethereum could have a run, because I think Ethereum is one cycle behind Bitcoin. Like, remember when Bitcoin was like 1,500, 2,000, it ran all the way up to 20,000. I mean, it ran all the way up to 20,000. So Ethereum could have a pretty big run. I don't know about 20. That seems a little too much, but 8 to 15 is certainly within and maybe it's 12, somewhere in there. But hey, I don't think we're going to be complaining about a $12,000 Ethereum, $150 FXS,
I'll be complaining about gas for sure.
You're going to be complaining about gas.
No, you got to go on FraxChain.
But then I got to go on FraxChain. All right, guys, this has been too bully for me. I need to come in and reign and operate a little bit.
Okay.
Crypto Vestor, what are some of my favorite R word risks that you see on the timeline here? What if the ETF doesn't get approved? What if?
That's not going to happen. But let's say it doesn't. We don't need an ETF. We've never needed an ETF. Bitcoin has survived through everything, all kinds of crazy things. People will always continue to buy, and Ethereum has use cases it never had in the last cycle. So even if we don't get an ETF, maybe we don't get an ETF, and maybe it only runs up to 90,000, instead of 150. But
so your timeline is still the same.
It's still the same. I think the cycles are pretty much, part of the way Bitcoin works with, just think about it. When the halving happens, literally it costs the miners 2 times as much to produce 1 Bitcoin. So what are they going to sell it for? So if it costs them 20 grand on average right now, and in April, it's going to be 40 grand to produce the same Bitcoin. I mean, it just has to organically go up. So yeah, it'll go up. Maybe it doesn't go up to 150,000 with no ETF, but I'm not buying that. But yeah, it is a risk. That's a risk. You know what's another risk? Frax. Let's talk about Frax risks. I think, the real world assets is a real risk. I mean, what if the bank account gets frozen? I'm thinking about that. Like, what if, that bank account gets frozen? I don't think there's a real legitimate reason for it to get frozen, but let's just say the government is doing some crazy stuff and they want to freeze the account. Well, then there goes SFrax and there goes the FXBs, right? So, and you know what? And I'm not saying this is going to happen with Frax, but it's going to be something like that causes the next bear market. Like, it won't be Do Kwon, like Steady Lads, deploying more capital. It'll be like the government subpoena that got issued to XYZ stablecoin that shut down their bank accounts. And then boom, It's something like that could happen. We got to admit that's probably likely scenario. I'm not saying it's going to happen to Frax. I don't think it will. It could happen to another stablecoin provider. It could be anyone. It could be smaller ones. But something like that, that's a risk. But I hope to get out before that happens.
Don't we all? I think one risk also is we haven't really got into it is eigenlayer reauthentication and restaking.
Yeah,
if it's just
that's a risk, guys. That's a risk. I love the concept, but
I love it too. We've had Shriram on, and
they're smart, super smart people.
Super smart. If there's someone that can solve that problem, it's that. But I just gotta look into that. Just screams. That just screams at me. I'm just like.
Well, here's another thing, right? You're talking about the eigenlayer, but it's also the staking derivatives, right? I'm not talking about frxETH because I think they're solid, but I think you're going to have ETH failures. Staked ETH failures. And I don't think Lido, and I don't think frxETH. But what about Stakewise or all these new ones, Figment, and there's going to be ETH failures. So what happens when you have them collapse and they're used for leverage and they're used for all these stable coins that are being issued? We're not going to see. It's going to be Luna-like, but it's not going to be scammy in a way. It's not a scam, but it's just going to be a problem with the way it was designed, like a design flaw, Yeah. That's a risk.
One last question for me, and then we'll go to the lightning round. What last words of advice do you have people going into this cycle? We had this is how you prepare, this is a risk you to watch out for. What are some words of advice you have for people going into the next 12 to 24 months?
Remain cool. Don't get too excited in the bull market. We all do. It's happened to the best of us, I'm included. You're going to see the Discord page fly. You're not going to be able to read the messages. Telegram's going to be off the chain. You know how right now you can just post something in Telegram and a month later come and it's still sitting there? That is not going to happen in the bull run, right? There's going to be so much craziness and there's going to be a lot of scams too and all that. So try to tone that down and focus on the main areas. One of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on Frax. I'm going to focus on Convex. I've kind of picked 3, 4, 5 protocols that I kind of focus on, because if I try to spread my time on all these, I see people on Twitter, they're talking about this and then that and then this, and it's dude, I don't even know what this does. My money's in here, but I don't know how. So focus on a couple of good core protocols. I really think Frax is safe. I think Convex is safe. Curve, even though this hack happened, I really think long term it'll be safe. And I think if you focus on those areas,
anything else?
Anything else? I think you should. I mean, not financial advice, but when you see people getting euphoric, start selling. Just don't be stupid and start selling something, because biggest mistake is not selling at the top. And we're going to get a top. It's going to happen.
Mass euphoria is when we're out of buyers. Mass, depression is mass panic. Mass capitulation is when we're out of sellers. And I feel like we are at, if not, we're past. I think we're past capitulation. So
we're past that. It's just kind of boring now, and it's that boring period. But we've only got a couple more months of that, and then things start picking up. And remember, if the Bitcoin ETF happens in January, that's really going to ignite a big. If it's what I think is going to happen, just look at the dates. Then I think we really start seeing.
Then
some
we
movement.
really run it. Yeah.
Yeah. It'll take a year to happen. It'll be steady all throughout the year of 2024 into 2025.
It'll be steady or
steady growth, ETH moving up, Bitcoin moving up,
Got it. So not non-parabolic.
Not parabolic. I think 20,000 to 120 is a good parabola.
I love how this episode went from being all about Frax and all about Curve Convex, and then it's just your handbook, your guide to the 2024-2025 bull run.
Well, it's a little bit of everything, I guess.
And they all relate.
It's all tied in.
It's all tied in. Not all just priced in. It's all tied in.
It is tied in.
And Yeah, and with that, let's transition over to the lightning round here, and we usually do these at the end of the pod. Crypto Vestor, just I'm sure you know since you're
Yeah,
a
I've
fan of
seen
the
it.
pod, so we got to get to know the man behind the profile picture, and I'm gonna kick it off with, what was your virgin crypto experience? And sex doesn't count. When did you first touch the blockchain?
Okay, I downloaded the Bitcoin wallet, the original Bitcoin wallet on my phone. Friend of
Oh,
mine, yeah, friend of mine told me to download it. He had some Bitcoin and he wanted to show me how it works. And he sent me $1 worth of Bitcoin. And I was like, well, you're so cheap, man. You just sent me $1. But it happened in like 2 seconds. And when I saw it arrive on my phone, that was it. Done. Like that was my first experience on chain.
Wow.
But that was
Okay.
not with a sexer. That was not with it was
Perfect. Yeah, that was a great answer. Second one.
2014 when Bitcoin was 150 dollars or something like that.
Yeah. And then second question is, what is your favorite off-chain touch grass activity, hobbies and interests?
Off chain. Oh man. Lately, it's been a lot of frax, guys. I'm not gonna lie. It's like, okay, when I'm not. I mean, I like going out in nature. I like going for walks with my wife, and spending time with family. Um, I like traveling. So I like going places, and but I do like being outdoors, and I do like being outside.
Cool.
I walk
like
the dog.
literally touching grass.
Literally, I have to, guys. I literally have to touch grass because doing this, like, what feels like not 24/7, but I mean, it really wears on you. It wears on you. It's not easy space to be in, especially in a bear market. But yeah, I do that. I do get out there. I do literally touch the grass to ground myself.
What would be some advice to your younger self?
Oh man, that's a good one. Well, I wish I could have bought more Bitcoin at.
That can't, no,
You can't
do
say that one. You
Yeah,
can't say
yeah,
that one.
I think if I could change something, I would try to be more patient. Just to exercise more patience. I'm kind of high energy, and I'm really passionate. Like you can hear me, I'm just really passionate about everything, and patience is sometimes really important, and I think I have to exercise that.
Patience is a virtue.
It is. It is.
And if you weren't in crypto, finance, or tech, what would your professional career path be?
I would be an architect.
So that, no, without hesitation, architect.
That was my plan when I was younger. It was to be an architect, and so yeah, that's kind of where I studied, architecture and drafting and that kind of thing. So that's my background too. I originally, before I got into TradFi, and so yeah, so I would probably be an architect.
What's your favorite building?
Oh, favorite building.
Or building style.
Building
Or
style.
building
I'd
style.
imagine you'd have one.
Oh, modern. I love the modern stuff.
Okay, got it.
Completely modern stuff, like
So you're like, fuck.
like
trips.
Dubai,
You're
like all the new buildings they're building in Dubai, that kind of thing. I like that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So you're like, fuck, like all those, Roman statue Twitter accounts are like, what prevents you from building this or like this? And you know what I'm talking about?
Well, here's the thing. I love Roman Empire. I mean, I know that was that TikTok thing a couple of weeks back where everybody's talking about, my wife asked me, she's like, well, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? I'm like, I don't know, once a week. She's sort of laughing. And it's true. It's like, I always kind of, I always liked, the architecture of Roman Empire and that type of thing. So
I think about it. Yeah.
Egyptian, history and that kind of thing too. The building and the structures, the pyramids. That's kind of interesting to me too, coming from an architectural background.
Oh, so we got modern and we got ancient Egypt. We got a mix of both.
Yeah, got a little bit of everything here. Yeah.
Yeah. And final question for me. Who do you want to see on the next episode of Flywheel? Who would you recommend as a guest?
Man, you guys have had so many good ones. I have two that I can think of that I don't think you've had. Rune from MakerDAO. Like you got to get him on. Like
Absolutely.
he knows Sam. I'm sure that could be arranged. Like Rune, he's a
Absolutely.
brilliant guy. You know, I don't always agree with everything his ideas, but I think that you have to listen to him, and it's got to be in a good perspective for Frax. And the other one, which might be a sleeper, is Charlene from FX Protocol.
Another one. Okay, this is a second recommendation for Charlotte.
I think she's really, really bright. And I don't think people know her that she's very quiet, and I think she's really reserved. But her what she's doing with FX Protocol and with FXN, with the leveraged ETH is pretty impressive. So I think
how she's been grinding for the past 3 years, all throughout the bear, 2-3 years, you know, between like the first products they created at Aladdin DAO with
I'm really close with those guys.
Yeah.
You know, now that they're kind of part of the Convex family, you know, I'm kind of more involved with that whole ecosystem. So that's one more protocol that I've kind of brought under my wings too. I'm starting to learn a little bit more about FX. And I get on the community calls, and
they have the A team.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are awesome.
They literally have an A team.
They have an A team.
Yeah, you know, I'm on their spaces. You know, I love those guys. It's fun to talk with them, and I think they're going to be, you know, because they're part of Convex, they're also kind of dovetailed in with Frax too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. On that note, those are some good recommendations. We'll see if we can get Rune on. That's a good. Yeah, I'm sure we can too. I'm more than confident. But where can people find you?
Oh, CryptoVestor at CryptoVestor on Twitter. I don't have any other major accounts, so just that would be probably the best one. And then of course Flywheel, right? I mean, you
the CryptoVestor Alpha Corner. Yeah, we love to see it. CryptoVestor, thank you so much for coming on this Alpha Pact episode. We hope to see you again soon.
It was a pleasure.
Absolutely,
thank you,
man.
All right, take care, guys.
All right, everyone, we're wrapping up this episode of Flywheel with the Bullvestor, CryptoVestor, DeFi Dave, Capital K here, and like I said at the end of the podcast, this was like your guidebook podcast. This is your guidebook to Frax. This was your guidebook to the bull market. This was your guidebook to the Curve ecosystem. If you're either retail, if you're a stablecoin, if you're even just any type of participant, this is something you want to listen to back again with CryptoVestor. Kit, what are your thoughts on this one?
I just got to first off by saying we are extremely biased. We want things to go up. And that was not financial advice at all. With that said, I think the conversation was it was a good vibes. I think we vibe really well. And at a point, I felt it was a little bit like an echo chamber because, you know, these are all theses that, you know, you and I / the community talk about.
Well, I mean, like, keep talking, yeah. I mean, like, yeah.
Obviously, CryptoVestor is part of the
community.
You
got to go in with the R word. You got to go in like, what are the risks?
I had to pee it. I had to, you know, poo-poo at everybody a little bit because I was just like, this is too good.
The funny was like, oh, no ETF doesn't matter. We're still going up.
Yeah, exactly.
We're still going. Fuck your ETF.
He's like, well, there's the happening. So I was like, oh, all right, that's fair. That's fair. There's also that as well too.
See, like, the ETF just makes everything so much more liquid.
Yeah, or rather,
liquid.
Makes it more accessible.
Yeah, liquidity. Like, that's so funny that's actually a term in our lingo because there's locked liquidity, which is illiquid liquidity. That's a locked liquidity. The liquid liquidity. Oh, okay.
Oh my God, it's too funny.
Yeah. Imagine being a new person listening to this episode. If you're like new to crypto for the first time, like, don't wonder why people are so like bewildered and puzzled.
Yeah,
because it's just like
juxtapose this with the pod that we did with Stacy.
I know,
like, you know,
this is like Stacy's a beginner pod. This is the advanced pod, which actually goes quite well.
Exactly. It's like, here, you know nothing, do this one. If you think you know what, watch this one. If you understand what's going on, then you do know what.
Good thing we're doing this like back to back weeks.
Yeah, it was fun. And then aside from that, I appreciated his insights into the different mechanics of the Frax ecosystem. And I don't know if you recognize it, but there was a point where I asked, well, how does all of this accrue back to the balance sheet? Because that is what's really, really matters. And he was like, you know, intellectually honest enough to say that, well, it actually doesn't really accrue directly to the balance sheet, but it does increase the supply of Frax, the attention to Frax, and from there, it implicitly obviously will bring awareness to all the other products in which Frax does make revenue. Right.
Yeah, it's like it's growing in market share in one product, and then it trickles down.
Yeah, a quick example I can tell you right now is like, if this, as Frax leveraging has become a thing, well, where do you want to borrow Frax? And who's the largest lender on that platform? So, we will get, in that sense, direct revenue from that activity engagement. But, at least he was honest enough. That's why I appreciate it. And then when we asked about the market, he kind of gave us his outlook, a little bit too bullish for me.
It's so bullish.
Yeah, I think it was a little too bullish for me, but I hope it is. I hope it is.
Dude, we'll see. I mean, we have it on the record.
Yeah,
the playbook right here.
I mean, he does have 20 plus years of hedge fund experience. So
yeah. Well, what do we know?
Yeah, but what do we know? Wait.
Yeah.
We don't know anything. But anyways, that's it from my end. DeFi Dave.
Dude, I'm just happy we had him on. Another thing was, like, it's really funny because, like, we see he's super energetic in the chat, and when we have spaces, he's super energetic there. He's like relentless with the questions and like literally the truffle sniffer. And so it was great to have him on a podcast to hear the energy, to feel the energy on this medium rather than being like in text. It's over audio, and so you felt it. It was palpable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I honestly also really like that he mentioned about curve and convex, because I feel like although we are so intricate, the incentive engine. I've always said that too. I've always said that Curve's product is not that. It's its tokenomics. It turned its tokenomics into a product, which is awesome. But
it's
anyways,
powerful.
I like that he brought up all the cool things that are happening over there in that ecosystem, because I myself am having a hard enough time keeping up with Frax itself. So I don't really look much into Curve and Convex at all. So that was, good to hear that there's innovations happening over there as well.
I feel like DeFi is so big now, you can only pay attention to like one or two ecosystems. We were talking about at the end. Like, I don't know how like threaders go and like, oh, we're going to do like this protocol and that protocol. And it's like
surface level. It's
all surface level. It's all, you don't get deep. Like you get deep by like sticking by one protocol long enough.
But arguably also though, you have the highest attack surface area if you look at everything, because it doesn't matter if you know that BAM is coming, but if you have like a small position in FXS, you're going to benefit from it anyways. So you really only needed to know like that surface level enough details.
I guess it depends like how involved you are in each community.
Mm-hmm.
But you know how we do it here at Flywheel. And if you want to keep up with everything what we do here at Flywheel, go to flywheeldefi.com. We have the Crypto Vestor Alpha Corner coming to you every 2 weeks. So make sure you go to subscribe to that. All our updates, flywheeldefi.com. Do it now below. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube. Hit that bell button for all the notifications. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Give us a like. Make sure to follow us on all of our socials. Flywheel DeFi on Twitter, TikTok, and Telegram. Make sure you get exclusive show notes because we're going to have plenty to go over in our friend tech at Flywheel DeFi on friend tech. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's DeFiDave22.
You want to follow me, it's 0xcapital_K.
And we will see you next week with a special episode. For real. You really want to hit that bell button because we have a really special episode. I promise. Everything said on this episode is not financial or tax advice. This channel is strictly for educational purposes and is not an investment advice or solicitation to buy or sell any assets or to make any financial decisions. This video is not tax advice whatsoever. Please talk to your accountant and do your own research.